we will now look at constructors. So constructors, as we have mentioned, these are special kind of methods that are invoked or called to construct an object from the class description. So a constructor ideally has two functionality. Number one, it is actually used to create the actual object from the class description. And number two is, when we are creating the object, we can put initial values for the data fields of the objects. Okay. So in our example, the circle example, we had two constructors. This was the first constructor where we can see the name of the class and the name of the constructor is same, and we will see shortly that this is the rule of writing a constructor, that the class name and the constructor name has to match character by character. Then we have this parenthesis pair. So inside this we have nothing, it's an empty body, but even if it has empty body, the data field will be created. That means in the memory we will allocate space for that or those particular data fields with whatever default values we have given. We had another constructor with the same name circle, but this time we have an input parameter. It's called double new radius. So what we do is we actually initialize our radius data field with this past new radius value. So these are our constructor for a circle class. So we can think like this. For example, the class description, if you simply write it and save it in a computer like something.java, circle.java, this code will not function or do anything actually. It will just like be a poem. We need to use objects from those class. So what we do is we actually call these constructors or invoke these constructors that will create an object according to its class description that we have already written. That's some basic rules of constructors. So a constructor with no parameters is referred to as a no argument constructor. So this is what we have seen here. There were no input parameters. So this particular constructor is called no argument constructor. Then constructors must have the same name as the class itself, and this is a rule. This is how the compiler will understand which one is a regular method and which one is a constructor. And also, while writing a program as a programmer, we don't need to find out separately what are the constructors for each of the class. By rule, we know the constructor name and the class name are exactly same. Then constructors do not have a return type, not even void. So this is a special type of method. Its functionality, the constructor's functionality is basically to reserve a memory location and assign any initial value. Therefore, it does not have any return type, not even void. If we write something with void, then that is no longer a constructor, rather it's a regular method. Then the constructors are invoked using the new operator. So new, we have seen the new keyword. Now we see that, okay, the new keyword is used to call the constructor. So when we have this new keyword, it actually creates a new object. And this object creation is also known as instantiation. So constructors play the role of initializing the objects as well. So how we call this? We put the new keyword here, and we have the class name as the constructor name, and we have the parenthesis pair. We can also pass some parameter inside the constructor like this. So new circle creates a circle with default radius value. New circle 5.0 creates another circle object where the radius value or the radius field will be assigned the value 5.0. So we have seen that a class itself, if it's simply written and it's sitting idly in our computer, is of no use to us. So a class, it may be declared without constructors, but if we don't construct any object from a class, the class has no purpose. So even if the programmer does not declare any constructor inside the class, the compiler actually put a no argument constructor with an empty body, and that automated code is called as default constructor, and that is a no argument constructor. And this constructor will be provided automatically only if no constructors are explicitly declared in the class. If we have some other constructors with parameters, there will be no default constructor. So how do we declare an object? We see that, okay, this is the way, with the new keyword, we can actually construct object somewhere in the memory. That means in the memory, we have reserved locations for keeping our data fields. So that location address needs to be put somewhere so that we can access that location, and that is known as the reference variable for that object. So how do we declare the reference variable of an object? This is the same as declaring any regular variable. So to reference an object, we need to assign the object to a reference variable. And to declare a reference variable, we can use the syntax: first the class name and then the reference variable name. This is the same as our other variable declaration, because this class name or the classes, they are also known as user defined types. So example could be this circle, because this is our type or our class name, and the reference variable name my circle. We can do this declaring and creating object in a single statement by doing this class name, then the reference variable, then the assignment operator, then new keyword, and then the constructor. So when we have this statement, the first thing happens is declaration of this reference variable. That means in the memory, we now have a location reserved to store an address. Then we have actually create the object. That means in a separate location, we reserve the data fields, and then this assignment, that means we actually take the address of the object's location and put the address in this reference variable. So example, this circle, my circle equal new circle. In the memory, we first reserve a memory location for my circle. That means actually the address to hold the object. Then we create the circle object with the default radius value, and then we take the address of that object and put it in the my circle location.